It's been about 3 months since my surgery, so I should probably post an update, huh? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Andrea, and in today's video, I'm going to give you an update on how my surgery went. First, let's start with a little show and tell. Here is my immobilizer. Do you like it? It's all the rage in Paris and Milan. I thought I'd show you this right away since I'm going to reference it throughout the video. The difference between a sling and an immobilizer is in the metal bracket that connects at the waistband and to the sling itself. This bracket makes it impossible for me to move my shoulder in any direction, and it forces my arm to stick straight out in front of my torso. Next, I'm going to share with you the highlights of my surgery and the recovery process whilst completing my morning routine on camera. I've never shared that before on camera, so you're getting an added little bonus. Just a fair warning, when we jump over in a second to my bath and vanity, I am dressed, but my face is not. You have been warned. Originally, I wanted to do one of those really cool chit-chat, get ready with me type of things where I apply my face and update you on everything that's happened. But I suck at doing two things at once. So it looks like you're stuck listening to voice over me while on camera me single-handedly finishes her morning routine. I ain't even sorry. Day one was surgery day. As I mentioned in my pre-surgery video, the day before my surgery, the hospital changed my arrival time from 9:30 a.m. to 6:30 a.m. I wasn't concerned about getting myself there on time, but I was concerned that Nathan, that's my husband, by the way, wouldn't have enough time to get the kids off to school and make it back to the hospital in time to see me and meet the doctor before they took me back to the OR. Thankfully, he arrived at the hospital just as my surgeon was coming in to see me for one final check-in, so he was able to meet the doctor and see me before surgery. My hope at the beginning of this was to have an uneventful, boring textbook surgery, and that is exactly what I got. We now interrupt the video in progress to bring you this very important message. You know what? Whether I'm using my dominant hand or my non-dominant hand, the brows are hard, okay? Because no matter how hard I try, instead of looking like sisters but not twins, brows end up looking like two second cousins twice removed that showed up at the family reunion wearing the same outfits. After some light refreshments, the hospital was ready to send me home. We ran into a tiny hiccup with the clothing I wore to the hospital. In my defense, I was told, because I asked, that I should wear a t-shirt and sweatpants, something loose and comfortable. However, I also was unaware that I would not be able to remove the immobilizer to get dressed. And since the immobilizer was already in place, I had to come up with a creative solution for exiting the hospital while keeping myself covered. Since I was already in my hospital gown and the immobilizer, I decided to just slap on my sweatpants and slip-on shoes and call it a day. I think I came up with a very smashing ensemble by pairing these pieces together, and I'm choosing to think that everyone that has to leave wearing an immobilizer does so wearing a very similar outfit, because that is the only thing that will work once the immobilizer is in place. After we got home, I really wanted to take the hospital gown off. So Nathan and I went to my closet to see what we could come up with. Honestly, the only thing that was going to work going over the immobilizer would have been a giant tent that I could have wrapped over myself. Since I was fresh out of tents, we looked to other options. Nathan determined that the fastener at the waist could be unbuckled. I could then step into a shirt and he would carefully help pull the shirt up into place on my torso without hurting me in any way. We figured something like a tank top, a sleeveless top, a one shoulder top would work. I did not, however, have any of these types of tops. So I had to add online shopping to my very packed, busy, stressful day of sleeping and watching TV. And I had to make sure that anything I purchased could be delivered quickly, very quickly. Since I was administered a nerve block during surgery, I had no pain in my shoulder. In fact, I had no feeling at all in my arm or my shoulder. I'd love to tell you that this didn't bring me hours of entertainment all day long, but that is totally not true. So amused. Anyway, at around 7 p.m., I started to get tingling sensations in my hands and forearm, which indicated the nerve block was wearing off. And because I am a big fat wuss when it comes to pain, I quickly took my prescribed pain medicines and told the pain to suck it. The last thing I needed to do to close out day one was figure out how on earth I was going to sleep with the immobilizer contraption. I opted to sleep on the couch because I knew I could prop myself up with the cushions and find a comfortable position. Plus, being propped up meant that I would not accidentally roll over onto my recently repaired shoulder. Also, if I woke up in the middle of the night, I wasn't going to disturb Nathan's sleep at all. Since nothing significant happened on day 2, we're just going to jump over to day 3 when I had a follow-up appointment with my surgeon. He was happy with my progress so far. He changed out my bandages and told me I could remove the immobilizer only to shower so long as I kept the bandages dry. He recommended wrapping the bandages in press and seal to keep the water out. Yes, the exact same press and seal that you use in the kitchen to wrap up your leftovers right before you shove them in the fridge and forget they exist. I did not take advantage of my shower privileges until day 4, which was a Saturday, and we were going out to dinner for my younger daughter's birthday. I wanted to clean up for the occasion, and let's face it, I had not showered since Wednesday morning, so it was time. It took more work than you might think to make all of this happen. First, we decided it would be best for me to wash my hair in the sink to minimize the amount of water pouring over my shoulder. Even though the bandages on my shoulder was wrapped up, we still thought that water might seep in and get the bandages wet. Thankfully, my oldest daughter volunteered to help me wash my hair in the sink because I could not have done that by myself one-handed. She not only helped me this day, she helped me several other times before I was able to do this myself. Once my hair was clean, Nathan helped me carefully remove the immobilizer and wrap my bandages in the press and seal. With my shoulder wrapped up like a Christmas ham, I carefully showered. I was so scared that I would somehow get hurt, so I proceeded very slowly. I tried to remember all of the things the doctor told me during the visit there so that I wouldn't hurt myself, and thankfully, I survived the shower without incident. After the shower, Nathan had to help me get dressed and put my immobilizer back on. Then I went about doing my hair and face as best I could. The end result was a bit, there seems to have been a struggle, but oh well. I was cleaned up and ready to go celebrate my daughter's birthday with her. The next day, day 5, was Sunday, and I wanted to get back into my usual weekly routines. I tried to spend some time on Sunday meal planning, looking over the schedule for the week, refilling the medicine organizers, packing snacks for lunches, and all of that kind of stuff. I also got caught up on reading emails, which was good because the next day, day 6, was Monday. The kids went back to school and Nathan went back to work, but I was okay with this because I felt confident that I could take care of myself while they were gone. I also managed to get dressed all by myself that morning, and I was proud of myself. I was determined to proceed with my normal routines that week with modifications. Once everyone is off to school, I continue on the same way I'm showing you here. I finish getting ready if I need to, I tidy up the house, and then I get to work on my computer. I usually start with my personal emails, phone calls, and paperwork. Then I turn my attention to channel content. Currently, the bulk of time I spend on content happens on the computer, not on the camera. I do all my own editing, and I type a variety of things. Before surgery, I used the mouse for everything in my editing software. This did not go so well after surgery though, as my dominant right hand was useless and trying to use the mouse with my non-dominant left hand was challenging. I kept juxtaposing the right and left click. I even changed it in my computer. I could not get that one right. Learning about 5 or 6 keyboard commands for the editing actions I use the most frequently significantly reduced my reliance on the mouse and helped me edit more efficiently. It was still slow going as I was one-handed in doing so with my non-dominant hand, but immediately I noticed a positive difference. As for typing, I wanted to use voice dictation just like I do on my phone, but I wanted a program that I could access easily on both my phone and my laptop. Enter Google Docs for the win. It does everything that I need, and I continue to use it now with voice dictation, even though I can type normally again. On day 7, my friend Joy came over. Shout out to Joy for coming over and providing me with a balanced amount of companionship and accountability. Since she can work from anywhere, she chose to work from my house that day, and she helped keep me accountable for my projects. I, in turn, was keeping her accountable for hers. And when we needed a break, we could chit-chat with each other for a bit. She also helped me out tremendously with food prep. It was a big help to not only me, but to Nathan as well. Just having one less thing to do to get dinner on the table for the week was so helpful. We realized with this encounter, though, that we had both been seeking accountability. So from that point forward, we continued to get together once or twice a week. We work on our projects separately. We get together periodically throughout the day when we need a break. We chat with each other for a few minutes, and it is so helpful. We're going to skip over to Friday, day 10, when I went back to the doctor and he removed my bandages. So I no longer had to worry about keeping the bandages dry because there weren't any more bandages. He also removed the immobilizer portion of my sling, which was amazing. 2 things I will not miss about the sling. Number 1 is the band around the waist. It would shift when I was sitting or laying down, which made it difficult to breathe. Obviously, I managed because I'm still here, but I did not like it. I also experienced discomfort in my lower back from the weight of my arm being redistributed onto that band. The second thing that I will not miss is how my arm was positioned to stick out in front of my torso. It was difficult to sit comfortably at a table. It wasn't a problem as much around the house because I had the freedom to move around, but on 2 occasions we went out to a restaurant and I had trouble enjoying myself because I couldn't find a comfortable position to sit in at the table. Thankfully, my time in the immobilizer wasn't very long and it's all behind me now. The doctor recommended that I take the sling off for short periods every day and perform some gentle exercises with my arm to help with circulation. Since the immobilizer kept my arm angled downward, my hand and wrists were swollen from all the fluids pooling there. So per doctor's orders, I completed a couple sets of unweighted bicep curls and gently squeezed a stress ball throughout the day to eliminate the swelling and get circulation back in the arm. The doctor also said that I was free to drive one-handed if and when I was comfortable to do so. It took 4 more days until I was comfortable. If there was a fly on the wall that first day back to driving, he would have gotten a good laugh that day, particularly when it was time to fasten my seatbelt. My right hand was completely useless, so I had to buckle myself in with my left hand. I eventually figured out how to twist and turn myself to get the belt buckled, but I did it. At first, I only drove short distances during non-peak hours or not during rush hour. The self-imposed limits lifted over time when I became more comfortable. Without the immobilizer, I was able to move my right arm a tiny bit at first. I could write and type, but only in small doses before my arm or shoulder started to get sore. Over the next few weeks, I continued to write and use the computer with my right hand, taking breaks as needed. I also used the sling less and less. I always wore the sling when I left the house, but at home, I wore the sling to bed and when I did chores as a reminder to not do stupid crap. Anyway, this pretty much sums up what my normal became after the immobilizer was removed. I continued with my modified routines, became more comfortable driving one-handed, and carefully figured out how I could use my arm. Anytime I tried to go outside the limited range of motion my shoulder would offer, I felt a sensation in my shoulder akin to stretching. So it just felt like I was stretching the muscle. I called this sensation the resistance, and when I felt it, I stopped because I have no allegiance to the empire, so I will not be fighting the resistance. Fast forward to 2 months post-surgery, and I went back to the surgeon for another follow-up. The doctor said I no longer needed to wear the sling, and it was time for me to start physical therapy, which I was glad to hear because I had already set up a physical therapy appointment for the next day. I returned to the physical therapist I worked with prior to surgery because I felt comfortable working with him and he already knew my shoulder history. At our first appointment back, he evaluated my shoulder movement, gave me some homework exercises to improve mobility, and scheduled 2 appointments per week for the next 2 months. Within the first month, I regained enough range of motion to do all of these things: brush my hair, brush my teeth, put on makeup, and pull my hair back, which is something Nathan used to have to do for me before he left for work every morning, up until this point. I noticed household chores becoming easier, but I still needed to be mindful of lifting anything too heavy. With the help of physical therapy, I was able to drive with both hands, which is good because I missed being able to have drinks and snackies when driving, and I couldn't have them when it was necessary to keep my only available hand on the wheel. I had no free hand for the snackies. My physical therapist, pleased with the progress from the mobility exercises, started adding in light resistance exercises to the lineup. In our session, we will use 1 or 2 pound weights, which you might think are ineffective, but you could not be more wrong. After a handful of reps, my shoulder and upper arm are on fire. At home, I have a series of resistance bands to help strengthen the shoulder muscles and the surrounding support muscles. In case anyone is wondering, I do perform the exercises on my left shoulder as well because I don't want it to be lopsided. When I reach the 2-month mark, I'll have another follow-up appointment with the surgeon, and my physical therapist will start reducing the frequency of our appointments. I will likely see him once a week instead of twice per week. After that, we'll see. Generally, though, the reduction in frequency for in-person visits means I have more homework to do at home, but that's okay. I don't know why, but I have this overwhelming desire to revisit my pre-surgery video and review whether or not all of those things were worth it. So here goes. In my pre-surgery video, I contacted my insurance company because they indicated they may not cover part of the surgery. So I called them asking to explain themselves, and they said essentially everything is fine. They were working with the doctor's office to get the matter resolved. After surgery was a different story though, because they tried to deny the claim. This time, however, they got Nathan on the phone and he said, "Show me the money." And they did. Another thing I did was I created a list of all the things that I do around the house and for the family. My plan was to type up the list, edit and revise it, and show it to my family over the weekend prior to my surgery. However, I didn't do that. I still found it helpful to type up the list because it gave me the confidence to ask for help, which I suck at. And all is not lost because I generally like having a list of all the things that I do just in case someone else has to take care of my kids for a few days. It's much easier for me to edit an existing list than it is to create a list from scratch. Next thing, I sent a card to my best friend from college because she was stressed out at work. She ended up texting me a couple of days after surgery and thanked me for the card. My hope was to just let her know I was thinking of her, and hopefully this card brightened her day. I won't get into too many details, but the response that I got from her was yes. She did appreciate getting the card and it was a nice gesture. So I'm glad I did it. Now, in full disclosure, I did get the use of my writing hand back 10 days post-surgery, but I used my surgery date as an imposed deadline. If I had all the time in the world to send that card off, I don't think it ever would have gotten sent. The next thing I talked about in the pre-surgery video was tidying up the house. I didn't show too much of this on camera, but I was trying to tidy up the house as much as humanly possible before my surgery. I did not want a bunch of messes staring me in the face when I needed to focus on recovery. I also knew that simple tasks were going to take longer after surgery with my limitations. So dealing with the pile of shirts in my room and having the laundry done were helpful things for me. I also took on the task of tidying up the garage. This is something I normally do by myself when Nathan's at work and the kids are at school. I do this once a year to ensure we have room to park both the cars in the garage. I was just doing that at an earlier point in the year than I usually do. I was in no shape to do it myself after surgery, and with everyone's busy schedule, it would have been difficult to get all hands on deck to get everything put away the way that I want, because if it's not, it's wrong. Another thing I talked about in my pre-surgery video were some items I purchased that I thought would be helpful after surgery. The water bottle that I purchased was an epic fail because there were nooks and crannies in that bottle that were difficult to clean because either the manufacturer did not provide any special cleaning tools to reach into the nooks and crannies, nor was the opening wide enough for me to fit my hand inside and manually clean the bottle. So the result belts are what I'm going to call a petri dish. You come to your own conclusion on that. I also figured this out too late. You also figured that out. Needless to say, I threw the bottle in the trash and resumed using one of my older sippy cups. But within a few days, I missed that high capacity bottle. So I purchased another bottle, which is all glass, has no nooks or crannies, but it still has that high capacity, uses a straw for the hydration delivery method, so I'm good. Next were shoelaces. I struggled with a pair of the shoelaces on camera, but they ended up working out really well. There was a second pair I showed you on camera, but those were a fail. As you can see, the end cap popped off, and it means that the adjustment toggle could slip off the end. Not good. Also, this is not my dog. This is Sadie. She is Joy's dog and low-key Dioge's girlfriend, but they don't want to put a label on it. I captured this footage when I was working from Joy's house one day. Anyway, I ended up trying a third pair I found on Amazon, and they worked really well. Plus, they lay flat and I don't have the toggles sticking up like on the other pair. Either way, I have to say I really like having elastic laces because they essentially help turn my sneakers into slip-on shoes. I don't think I ever want to go back to tying my shoes again. I also bought some elastic-waisted pants. What I didn't tell you in the previous video is that I'd purchased 3 pairs of pants, but I was not 100% sure I would keep all 3. Not only did I keep all 3, but I purchased 2 more pairs. As you can tell, those were a win. I ended up purchasing some other items after surgery that were also helpful, so I thought I'd mention them as well. One is a mesh sling. I bought this as a backup for my primary sling, the one that came from the doctor, so that I could have something to wear if I needed to wash the first sling, but I found it helped with the heat factor. The medical sling that came from the doctor is all foam and synthetic fibers, and it traps in the heat. I didn't wear the mesh sling out of the house, but it was helpful when I was working around the house and I needed to have a sling on. I wore it a lot at bedtime because it was cooler, and sometimes I just needed a break from all the synthetics of the original. The next thing I bought were these seatbelt covers. There's a lot of heavy-duty Velcro on the strap of this sling, and the padding that comes with the sling was not substantial enough to cover all of it. It needed to be a tiny bit longer to cover up all the Velcro. This Velcro was ruining my life because it was shredding my sweaters, shredding my skin, and pulling out my hair. These seatbelt covers were the perfect solution. I'm sure someone wants to point out that there's Velcro on the seatbelt covers, and that is correct. But this Velcro is a weaker species, and it knows it, so it does not try to pick a fight. Versus the Velcro on the sling, which will cut you, mock you, and laugh about it with its friends. All that to say is that the Velcro on the seatbelt cover isn't bothering me. Oh, look at that. There are no slings on me. How exciting is that? I did my best to try and anticipate what life was going to be like after surgery, how I was going to get through my day-to-day doing everything one-handed and with my non-dominant hand at that. There were some things that I expected, but there were some unexpected things too, and I want to talk about them. There are the things that were hard to do because I was doing them one-handed. I don't mean to be gross, but it was really difficult to blow my nose one-handed, and I'm someone who wakes up sniffly every day, so it's inevitable that I had to, but I did not look forward to it. That is all. Another thing that was hard to do one-handed was put a headband in my hair or use over-the-ear headphones. You'd be surprised how difficult it is to do those things one-handed. In the same vein as headphones, I wear my AirPods quite a bit, not just for listening, but for talking on the phone. And if you've used them before, then you know. When you don't get them in your ears within a few seconds of each other, one of them starts up, but the other one doesn't. So you have to take them out and start over. Most days I had to start over at least once to get them fired up and working properly. Yeah, I did not anticipate that. Some of my daily activities were difficult to do because it was left-handed. Now, sometimes it was a geography thing, meaning that whatever I was trying to do was on the opposite side of my body. One place this happened quite a bit was in the car. All the controls were to my right, so I had to keep reaching over to grab the controls until I had enough range of motion to do that right-handed. Another thing was the coffee maker. The water reservoir for it is on the right-hand side. So once again, I had to cross over myself to put the reservoir back in place after I refilled it. It wasn't that that was difficult to do left-handed, it was just a geography thing. Then there were the things that were hard to do because it's left-handed and I am not left-handed. So I think I covered on a lot of it here. You saw I struggled a bit with my makeup, brushing my hair, brushing my teeth. I did my best to find workarounds for all of these things or persevered as best I could to get the job done. In all honesty, I was really hoping that this experience would make me ambidextrous, but I'm impatient. So as soon as I was able to go back to doing it right-handed, I did. So that's kind of the highlights of things that were difficult to do one-handed. And thankfully, it was not very long-lived. And there were just a few things that I completely did not expect. The first one is the lack of pain. Now, I'm not complaining here. To be clear, I'm not complaining about that at all. I'm a wuss and I hate pain. I've already said that. But I thought at some point I would experience some pain with all of this. But I think that there's a couple of reasons why I didn't experience more pain. The first thing is, I mentioned this earlier in the video, but they gave me a nerve block in the shoulder when I was under anesthesia. Then once I did start to get sensation, I took my pain medicine right away as prescribed. Anytime I got a twinge of pain, I took my pain medicine immediately. I did not wait for the pain to gang up on me and kick my butt. I started out with the prescription medication, but then after a couple of days, I switched over to over-the-counter medication to see if that would help, and it did the job. As long as I stayed on top of the pain and did not let it grow out of control or become unbearable, I really did not experience pain. I did, however, have discomfort. Once the sling was in place, I expected there to be, some neck tension or discomfort because you're talking about redistributing the weight of my arm to some other place in my body that is not used to that. What surprised me is that I continued to have neck discomfort even when I'm not wearing the sling. There's a bigger explanation in this, but because one area has been manipulated and changed, it does affect the surrounding areas. So that includes some of the neck muscles. My physical therapist, he's been trying to provide some remedies for some of the neck discomfort, but he said it's normal. It will eventually subside. And here's what I can do in the process. So I had this next unexpected thing. The best way I can describe it is I would just temporarily forget that I had surgery. And you're probably wondering, Andrea, how do you even do that? I would be engaged in my normal everyday activities and I would be on autopilot and try to do things the way that I've always done them. Things like getting dressed, and I couldn't figure out why my arm would not move through the sleeve like it's supposed to because I didn't modify that action. Or doing chores, I would forget that I can't hold as many things in my arm because it's uncomfortable for me to hold my arm in a certain position, or I might try to pick up something that's too heavy. There were times that I realized, oh, wait a minute, this is uncomfortable. I can't do it that way anymore. I forgot I needed to do this thing differently because of all the repairs that were made over here. Duh. Before I close out this video, I just want to extend my heartfelt thanks to my family. They were amazing through this entire process. Special shout out to my oldest. She is 16 and has a driver's permit. So shout out to her for not only helping me wash my hair, but for being my personal chauffeur for those first few days until I was able to drive myself again. Shout out to my younger daughter who helped me every weekend with the laundry. She also learned how to make lunch for her and her brother, so she took on that task on the weekends as well. And shout out to my youngest for all around being so thoughtful. Every single day when he would get home from school, he'd come in, he'd check on me and see how I was doing. Anything I asked of him, he willingly did so without any kickback, pushback, or any of it. And that was so amazing to have. And of course, massive shout out to Nathan. He took on so many extra tasks while I was going through all of this. In addition to taking care of me, there was all the extra responsibilities he had to take on around the house. Things like getting dinner ready and making sure kids did homework and having everybody do their chores, and just so many things that I can't possibly name all in one video. But overall, I cannot thank him enough for all of the things he did for me. He just stepped in and owned it. I don't think I'll ever find the right words for how thankful I am for everything that he did for us after my surgery. So Nathan, when you eventually watch this video, just know that I am so thankful for you and for all the kindness, compassion, and care that you gave me while I was recovering. And finally, shout out to all of you for spending your time with me. That's all I have for you today, and I will see you in my next one.